Today, we're diving into Umbanda, a spiritual tradition that was born in Brazil out of this incredible mix of cultures. It's a story about faith, it's a story about resilience, but really, at its heart, it's about radical inclusion.
Everything starts with this one powerful question. And get this, it was asked back in 1908. Not by a person, but by a spirit speaking through a young man. It was a direct shot at the prejudices of the time, and it was the spark that lit the fire for a whole new faith.
So, to really get why that question was so revolutionary, we have to travel back in time. We need to look at what was going on in Brazil in the early 20th century. It was this spiritual melting pot, but not all beliefs were treated as equals. Not by a long shot.
I mean, on the surface, you had this amazing mix. You had indigenous traditions, African spiritual systems that honored the Orishas, and of course, European beliefs like Catholicism and Kardecist spiritualism. But underneath all that, there was this rigid social hierarchy that basically decided whose faith was legitimate and whose wasn't.
And this is where it gets really specific. In the Spiritist meetings of the upper class, there was a very clear bias. When spirits of the Pretos Velhos, the wise ancestors of enslaved Africans, or the Caboclos, the indigenous ancestors, would manifest, they were just dismissed. Their wisdom was called low spiritism, and they were told to go away.
So, Umbanda wasn't just a new idea, it was a direct response to the spiritual segregation. The story of how it all began is pretty extraordinary, and it all started with one young man.
It all kicks off with Zélio de Moraes. He's just 17, and all of a sudden, he starts speaking in the voice of an old man. His family is worried, of course. Doctors, priests, nobody can figure it out. So on November 15th, 1908, they take him to the Spiritist Federation. And that's when a spirit comes through Zelio and challenges the leaders right then and there, asking them why they kept rejecting the spirits of the Caboclos and the Pretos Velho.
Now, when the leader of the session tried to silence him, the spirit made this incredibly powerful declaration. He said, essentially, if you're going to judge spirits based on who they were in their past lives, then fine. I'll be back tomorrow to start a new faith, a place where these spirits can be heard. He gave his name the Caboclo of the Seven Crossroads. And he wasn't bluffing. The very next night, November 16th, 1908, the first Umbanda temple was founded right there in Zelio's home. And it was built on a simple principle: free spiritual help for anyone who needed it. Okay, so from that single moment of defiance, you get this beautiful and complex spiritual structure, and it all flows directly from that original message of inclusion. Now, this is a really key point for anyone new to Umbanda. It is a monotheistic religion. Everything centers on one supreme creator, known as Olorum or Zombie. Think of this as the ultimate source of all energy, the creator of everything in the universe. So, below that one creator are the Orishas. It's really important to understand they aren't considered gods, but more like divine forces of nature, manifestations of God in the world. And that association with Catholic saints you see, that comes from something called religious syncretism. It was a brilliant and totally necessary strategy that enslaved Africans used to keep worshiping their Orishas by disguising them as Catholic saints. And this is where it all comes full circle. The spirits who actually communicate through the mediums are the very ones who were once rejected. The Caboclos, who bring strength and a deep knowledge of nature, and the Pretos Velhos, who offer these profound lessons in humility and resilience. They're seen as evolved spirits who come to work for one reason: charity. Okay, so that's the belief system. But what does it actually look like? What happens when you walk inside an Umbanda temple, or what's called a terreiro? Let's take a look at the elements of a ritual. Well, an Umbanda service, called a gira, is really an experience for all the senses. You'll see everyone wearing white, which is all about peace. Music is absolutely central. There are these sacred songs called pontos cantados that are used to call in the spirit guides. And at the very heart of it all is mediumship, where these guides work through the mediums to offer advice and healing to absolutely everyone who asks for it. You might be thinking that being a medium is about having some kind of special power, but that's not it at all. Becoming a medium in Umbanda is a really profound journey of self-improvement. It starts with humility, and it requires a ton of self-discipline to work on your own flaws. The whole point, the ultimate goal, is to become a clean and pure channel for the guides to do their charitable work. And that word, charity, that's what brings everything we've talked about together. It is the single most important idea in Umbanda. It's the North Star for every single prayer, every song, and every action.
This was the simple, beautiful definition given by the Caboclo of the Seven Crossroads, right at the very beginning. It's not about complicated rules or dense theology. It is, quite simply, spirituality in action, all for the purpose of helping other people.
This saying guides all the work inside a terreiro. Any spiritual gifts, any advice, any healing, it's all seen as coming from the spiritual world. So it has to be passed on freely, without ever charging money or expecting anything in return.
So we end up right back where we started. Umbanda was born as an active protest against being excluded. It created a space where the forgotten, the marginalized, weren't just welcomed, they were honored as sources of wisdom. And it kind of makes you ask a question for us today, right? In a world that so often feels fractured by prejudice, what lessons can we learn from a faith that was founded on the simple but radical ideas of inclusion and charity for all?